Welcome to another edition of Inside the 12. By the way, it's official. The Big 12 playing some of the best college football in all the land. And we'll get confirmation from Devin Gardner on that coming up later in the show. Fox Sports analyst. He's going to be boots on the ground for TCU against number 23 Houston on Fox on Saturday. But let's bring in our signal caller, Taylor McHargue, joining us. By the way, I'm going to start calling you midweek McHargue. I mean, if you are watching national TV, college football in the middle of the week, it's more than likely this dude is on the call providing analysis. What's up, Taylor?
Man, these midweek games, I love it. At the action this Tuesday night, but we're winding down the midweek stuff and back to getting focused on the Big 12.
Yeah, so excited. I mean, what a time to be a part of the Big 12 and to watch this conference really ascend. You got three teams banging on the door of the college football playoff. Of course, that championship game, the 2025 Edward Jones Big 12 Football Championship, getting set to be played on December 6th. Now, two teams can seal the deal this weekend, Taylor, and find a way to that game and solidify their status.
Well, we know about Texas Tech, right? And I think we all agree the best team in the Big 12 right now. They're on a bye this week. But if BYU goes on the road and beats Cincinnati and Arizona State were to lose, Texas Tech, even on a bye week, secures their spot in the Big 12 championship. BYU needs a little more help. If they were to beat Cincinnati and Arizona State were to lose, they would also need Houston to lose. If all that happened, you could see in this 11th game of the season for both of these teams, Texas Tech be in and BYU be in a rematch for the Big 12 championship.
So the issue is at hand now for BYU, and it moves to Nippert Stadium in Cincinnati. This huge game between BYU and Cincinnati going to be preceded by big noon kickoff on Fox, 10 a.m. to noon, and then the game at 8 Eastern on Fox. This is a high-stakes showdown in a major atmosphere for BYU to go and play in what will be a scary place to throw down. Let's take a look back a little bit to last week. A huge loss for Cincinnati at the hands of Arizona. They have now lost two straight, and BYU, man, they are back in business. 44-13 against TCU at home.
Arizona had a great game plan going on the road against Cincinnati, but for BYU, great job from Bear Bachmeier. I thought it was maybe his most complete performance of the entire season. He ran the football well. He threw it well on the run. They played good team defense, great red zone defense, limited TCU where they were trading field goals for BYU's touchdowns. And I think you saw the combination of all three phases, again, benefiting their freshman quarterback who's playing better and better. Turnovers like this created on the defensive side benefit your young quarterback so much. On the other side for Cincinnati, a really disappointing loss at home. They had everything going for them, still an opportunity if they won out to go to the conference championship, and they came out flat on the offensive side. Brennan Sorsby had a couple forces. This interception, this was the first play of the game, had another interception later. And I think it sticks out to me that Sorsby has struggled throwing against man defense, going all the way back to week 1 against Nebraska, against Utah, and against this Arizona defense. Man coverage has provided problems for Sorsby. Now they don't control their destiny, but another opportunity. This is a big spot for them. Capture back some momentum, play spoiler against BYU, but they're going to need more out of Brennan Sorsby if they're going to get a win at home.
Keys to the game for BYU and Cincinnati.
For BYU, it's do exactly what you just did against TCU. Stay ahead of the chains. The one thing BYU we learned about them against Texas Tech, when you get in 3rd and long, Bear Bachmeier, that's where the freshman mistakes came from. I think if they can continue to stay ahead of the sticks, run the football well, utilize his running game, and then also get Bear Bachmeier on the move. He throws it so well, both to his left and his right. For Cincinnati and Brennan Sorsby, it's take care of the football. We know they can create explosive plays, but giving the football away and being flippant with your decision-making, I think that's where it gets Cincinnati in trouble. And if you lose the turnover battle against BYU, you almost always lose the game against these guys.
You know, I can't get away from you. I heard you yesterday on College Football Radio on Sirius talking about how BYU has done such a terrific job in 3 phases of the game, like you mentioned, to keep, Bear Bachmeier out of those like comeback scenarios or 3rd and long, right? He really has been put in an advantageous spot all season long by this BYU team.
They play good field position. The kicking game is strong. Defense creates takeaways. And when they're on offense, they do such a good job in play calling, staying ahead of the sticks. That's why you see them with a lot of 3rd and short opportunities. And if they go for it on 4th down, it's at 4th and 1, 4th and 2. All of these things benefit a young quarterback who, Bear Bachmeier, he's getting stronger as the year goes along.
Well, we're talking about BYU. It makes me want to kick in the door for that college football playoff committee when we look at these rankings. We got 5 teams in the Big 12, but BYU at 11. Texas Tech, top of the heap at 5. Then you have Utah at 12. Houston at 23, and Arizona State at 25. Now, Texas Tech moving up after Alabama's loss to Oklahoma. What are your thoughts right now on this college football playoff ranking?
That if this were to hold, this would be great for the league and great for if we expect Texas Tech to win out, and they're the favorite. If they win out, they would host. We expect it to be the Group of 5 representative. Now, that could be the ACC representative, depending on where this shakes out versus who we think it'll be the American Conference out of the Group of 5 or even James Madison. It's possible that it's the ACC representative, but for Texas Tech, this would be massive for them if they could secure that 5 spot ahead of what would likely be the 3rd SEC team, because then they get that home game and they get it against what is in all likelihood the weakest team in the college football playoffs.
Now, a lot has to shake out for this to happen, but there still is an outside chance that the Big 12 gets 3 teams in the college football playoff. Look into your crystal ball. What has to happen if that's going to go down?
Well, if one of these teams between BYU or Utah were to upset Texas Tech, I don't think the committee would bounce Texas Tech, so that would secure 2 teams. I think if Texas Tech were to beat BYU close in a rematch, I think BYU probably gets in. Utah is the one that needs the most help because they're not going to have a chance in all likelihood to play for the conference championship. They might, but as it stands right now, it doesn't look likely. You need a number of things to go your way to where you're comparing 3-loss teams against a 2-loss team that didn't compete in the conference championship against Utah. It's not out of the question. It's still possible the league gets 2 or 3 teams in, but Utah especially needs a lot of help up ahead of them.
All right, we're going to come back now. Speaking of Utah, right? They got a new secret weapon on full display last weekend in Waco. I don't expect this dude to be going anywhere but the end zone. We'll be back. We are back on Inside the 12 with last week's game-breaking plays brought to you by Hell of a Good Dips. Game on, dip in with Hell of a Good. We begin in Cincinnati. Kedrick Risino, a 50-yard touchdown run, and a huge one at that. This was enabling Arizona to take that third quarter lead against Cincinnati. Wildcats hold on for the huge upset, 30-24. The Scotty Fox Project well underway in Morgantown, and Sincere Bowers taking the short pass. This is called yards after the catch. 90 of them. And watch this, almost runs out of gas here. The gas tank, sputtering, gets into the end zone. Arizona State would win late on a field goal, 25-23. And Elijah Davis, Sawyer Robertson doesn't do this too often, but maybe telegraphs a pass, but Elijah Davis, either way, takes full advantage, takes it 65 yards for a touchdown. Utah just battering a Baylor team that's on fumes right now. 55-28 was the final score. All right, we welcome you back, Pete Sousa with Taylor McHargue, and we'll take another look at the Big 12 standings right now as we are getting deep into the season. There they are. You see Texas Tech at the tippy top. BYU, Utah, and Houston. Arizona State still clinging to life, by the way, for a Big 12 championship appearance, but that is a serious long shot. 9 teams potentially bowl bound, and Kansas State looking for win number 6, but they face a tough test coming up in Utah. Looking forward to that game. And Taylor, when you take a look at that game on paper, right, who do you like and why do you like them?
I think you've got to look at Utah and the style that they are playing right now that I feel like they've really hit their stride in terms of running the football. What they did to Baylor, running for almost 400 yards, and the combination of Devin Dampier and Bird Ficklin, I think Kansas State's going to get a heavy dose of that. And for Kansas State, who has not played great on the road this year with the exception of their win at Kansas, I think this is a tall task. Going on the road to Utah, arguably the toughest road environment for teams in the Big 12. I think this is a tall task. And again, the physicality that Utah displays, we already know about their all-world tackles on either end that are going to be first-round picks. They're running the ball right at teams right now at a high level. I think Utah wins big, barring some sort of crazy turnover issues or injury. I think Utah wins big.
You know, they got the Wasatch Mountains out there in Utah. They call those guys the Wasatch Front, and they should. That offensive line is absolutely brutal on the opposition. That game at 4 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN2 on Saturday. But now we're going into the quarterback club. We've got a brand new member, a young fella, not of age yet, so, you know, we'll keep him away from the cocktails. But he's going into the club with you, dude, and it's pretty cool to see Bird Ficklin making an appearance.
This guy, unbelievable last week against Baylor. 166 yards on the ground. He was averaging almost 30 yards a carry. See a couple examples of it here of his speed downfield. Guy by the name of Denard Robinson, who played at Michigan once upon a time in my vintage. That's who he reminds me of. The design quarterback sweep off the left side, pull the guard around, and get behind your blocks. The rest of this is speed. This is a quarterback running away from defensive backs in Baylor. You see that offensive line. They do such a good job at Utah of pulling all 5 of their offensive linemen have the ability. When you get guys out in space that block that well, it sets up big plays like that for Bird Ficklin. They come right back to it. This is the same play going in the opposite direction. Safety takes a bad angle, and watch this. Throws him out of the club. You talk about being in the quarterback club. DB for Baylor, you're uninvited. Gets all the way to the end zone. Great job again, pure speed and athleticism here. A little bit of physicality with, it's not even a stiff arm, it's really just a slap to the face. And then the last one, you have the 2 big runs. You got all the DBs in their eyes looking into the backfield, throw the slant in behind it. And this doesn't go for a touchdown, but this is that second element for Bird Ficklin's game. And I think these are the things that for Utah, as they've developed his role as the season has gone along, I think that's part of what makes Utah even more dynamic and dangerous as this season progresses. But what a week for the young freshman Bird Ficklin.
You know, and you still have Devin Dampier. If you're Jason Beck, Utah's offensive coordinator, is there a specific way you would continue to use Bird Ficklin regardless of the health of Dampier? A specific way?
Absolutely. I think you're going to have a package no matter what now for Bird Ficklin in the design quarterback run game. And I would also, he's a very competent passer as well. I think I would expect to see down the stretch that evolve in that package. When he comes in the game, the entire defense is going to be keyed on him running the football. I would expect that they have some elements off of it where they go straight to a downfield shot play because everybody's going to be expecting him to run the ball. So yes, regardless of Dampier's health the rest of the way, I expect Bird Ficklin to be active and involved in this offense for Utah.
You know, you mentioned a shifty Michigan quarterback, Denard Robinson. We're coming back on the other side of the break with Devin Gardner. He's going to be in Houston this weekend for the Fox broadcast of TCU at the number 23 Cougars. We're going to step aside and be back with that preview and some thoughts from Devin Gardner on the Big 12. Welcome back to Inside the 12, and it's time to welcome our esteemed guest. He's going to be on the call this weekend for TCU at number 23 Houston. Game's going to be 4 Eastern time on Fox. Former Michigan quarterback and Fox Sports college football analyst Devin Gardner joining us. Devin, man, what's up? That's a good setup that you got there. Looking good.
Yeah, I built it myself. You know, I bought the things, I drilled the holes. A lot of man hours building this background.
On and off the field, a crafty individual. I want to get into some of this Big 12 stuff with you, particularly Texas Tech. What stood out to you as unique about this team? Because they do feel like now they're just punching into a different weight class.
Oh, yeah, they're exactly who you think they are, unless you don't have a brain, because you think they're the old Texas Tech. They are not that. They play great defense, and especially up front. Romello Height and David Bailey, their get off. Sometimes I sit and I'm calling the game and I get distracted because I just want to see how fast they get off the ball. I mean, it's like getting shot out of a rocket, and their ability to stop the run. Obviously, not Malcolm Rodriguez, Jacob Rodriguez. They are top to bottom a very, very complete team. The only thing that really scares me about Texas Tech is the health of the quarterback. If the quarterback is healthy, they have a direct path to the championship. They know how they want to play. They know exactly who they are. They can throw the ball like they always have, but they can also run the football. Their offensive line is intact. The only thing that scares me is, can the quarterback stay healthy? Guess what? He got healthy last week. He was out before the second half, and he also has a bye week. I think he's going to be healthy, and they'll have a real shot.
Back to that Texas Tech defense. The eye of the storm is Jacob Rodriguez, like you mentioned. Joey McGuire and a lot of folks now nationally pushing for him to be a Heisman candidate and be there at that ceremony, yourself included, in New York. I think you answered the question. Do you think he should be there in New York for that ceremony?
Absolutely. His story is incredible, and a lot of times it's not just about stats. It's about who you are and what you mean in college football. He's the perfect story. He came into college football as a quarterback, and you don't see the switch from quarterback to linebacker very often, and he's done it seamlessly. Ended up at Texas Tech, and he's been a catalyst for what they've been able to become. His ability to be a leader on the defensive side of the ball, and not only just on the defensive side of the ball, as a teammate And then you get to the other stuff. Leading the country in forced fumbles, all around the ball. In the game, he had a few Heisman moments in the game I just had where he scores the touchdown and then the interception. Right when I'm talking about how great his instincts are, he baits the quarterback and throwing a screen right into his hands. And then it's not an easy catch. It's an amazing catch and, 9 tackles to boot. I just think that his what he's been able to do and what Texas Tech has become, which is one of the best teams in all of college football, I think it will be criminal if he's not invited there.
And his wife flies Black Hawk helicopters for the U.S. Army.
What more do you want?
You can't write.
What more do you want?
All right, let's get to your game this weekend. Houston and TCU. Houston's dream season, really. It's been better than anybody could have expected. How has Willie Fritz turned this program around in just 2 seasons?
Listen, I'm essentially going to foreshadow what my open is going to be for the game. Nobody expected anything from Houston. But when you have a quarterback, you have a chance, period. That's where it stops. And this quarterback, Connor Wegman, who I coached at the Elite 11, never saw him being the rusher that he's become. He is one of 5 players in all of college football to have at least 2,100 passing yards, at least 400 rushing yards, to go along with at least 27 touchdowns. That's rare air, right? There's only 5 guys in all of college football that's doing it, and he's able to do it. And it's so weird because he's not this big, giant guy. However, he's remained healthy. And when you get to the end of seasons in college football and even NFL football, the more healthy teams are the ones that perform well. And so it starts with the quarterback. Obviously, there are other pieces and different things like that. And Willie Fritz is doing a great job. But you start here. If you have a quarterback, you have a chance, and they've got one. What
about him as a quarterback has allowed him to figure out running the football and becoming a dual threat? I mean, you played quarterback. You could run the football. What is that part of the maturation process, or was it something he worked to do, you think?
So when he was at the Elite 11, he could throw, obviously. He wouldn't be there if he couldn't. But the one thing I was super impressed was his attitude, his competitive fire, his competitive juice. And sometimes that's all you need to be an adequate runner. For me, I don't think he's able to go line up at wide receiver and be super dynamic, right? I don't think he's that type of athlete. But however, when you have an attitude that I'm going to get it done, right, it's hard to stop you. And when I was talking to the TCU coaching staff, they said that he's very similar to Max Duggan, where Max Duggan, I mean, he's a good athlete. He's not the greatest athlete in the world, but it's his attitude and his willingness and his desire, his determination to get it done, no matter how you got to get it done. And I think that's a lot of what Connor Wegman has.
Last question for you. You mentioned talking to the TCU coaches. How do they get things back on track this week?
Yeah. I think that they have to get back to the way they play football. They've been riddled with injuries, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. And I think it's really affected the entire team, right? Because their quarterback, Josh Hoover, can make all the throws. He's even added the dimension of running the football this year. But without number 2, Kavorian Barnes, they have really started to try to find a way to replace that production. And for Josh Hoover, it forces him to start to press, right? And do more than what he's asked to do, which sometimes gets you in trouble when you're the quarterback. So the idea for them is to get back to everybody just do their job, and specifically Josh Hoover. You can't do it all for everybody. You do your job, and you have to trust that everybody else is going to do it, and they have to make up the slack.
Devin Gardner, you have always been able to do your job awfully well on the field and in the broadcast booth, and now sharing time with us. Really appreciate you, man, just sharing some of your thoughts about the Big 12 with us, and have a great call.
I appreciate you, man, and I can't wait to see you on the call.
All right, take care. That was Devin Gardner. When we come back, our look at the Week 13 schedule continues. Inside the 12 is brought to you by Hell of a Good Dip. Game on. Dip in with Hell of a Good. All right, we continue inside the 12 with some more of our upcoming games, breaking them down. Remember, Texas Tech and West Virginia on a bye, and do not forget 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. BYU, ranked 11th in the country, travels to Cincinnati. Nippert Stadium, going to be a raucous environment by the time they kick off. Dangerous game for the Cougars against the Bearcats. We bring back in Taylor McHargue, our signal caller. Kansas and Iowa State, noon Eastern Time on FS1. Both of these teams still have a lot of talent, in Kansas looking to solidify a bowl bid.
I think that's what stands out to me. The opportunity for Kansas, despite all the ups and downs and troubles with Daniels at quarterback and some of the turnover issues, if they could figure out a way to go into Ames and get a win on the road. And for Iowa State, we talked about all the troubles and issues that they had in October, a month that was not kind to the Cyclones, but they're playing better. I think they've found their identity a little bit more, figuring out ways to win. I think Iowa State wins this game, but this is a big opportunity for Kansas in a season where I feel like they probably feel like they've underwhelmed some. If they can go into Ames, I think this would be the biggest win of the season for the Jayhawks if they could play spoiler.
Yeah, we move on now. Baylor at Arizona. That's 1 Eastern time on TNT. Dave Aranda fielding questions from the local media in Waco this week about his job security and basically saying, hey, I have to forget all that. If anything's going to happen in a positive direction, I got to focus on Arizona and beating the Wildcats. How does Baylor do that?
I think Arizona, to me, is the team that outside of Texas Tech is playing the strongest as the year goes along. They have gotten better and better each and every week. That win last week, the way that they beat Cincinnati, I thought was maybe the most impressive win of the entire weekend for the Big 12. Noah Fafita playing well, that defense creating a lot of takeaways, and that is the problem for Baylor on the other side. Sawyer Robertson, the turnovers have mounted as the season has gone along. I think he's feeling the pressure of there really being a one-sided offense and having to throw the football. I think Arizona wins this game. They're favored by multiple scores. I don't see a way for Baylor to go in the way that they've played. They would have to change their DNA in a lot of ways and how they've been giving the ball away in order to go in and get a win against Arizona, who to me is the surprise, even maybe more so than Houston, the surprise for me this year in the Big 12.
And Noah Fafita, you mentioned it, played electric and also played clean. I call that quarterback club karma. You welcomed him into the quarterback club last week, and now here we are. All right, last game we're going to talk about, Arizona State at Colorado, 8 Eastern time on ESPN2. Hey, look, let's face it. A lot of teams in the Big 12 will be pulling for Colorado this weekend, Saturday night in Boulder.
Especially Texas Tech and BYU. We talked at the top of the show about the scenarios where they both could end up securing their spot in the Big 12 championship. Well, they both rely on Arizona State. And if they were to lose against Colorado, that changes a lot of things in this league. I don't see that happening. I think Arizona State, they've done a great job with quarterback issues and the change. And once Leavitt went down and Sims, the way that he stepped up for that offense for Arizona State, I think they'll go on the road, play well, get a win against the Colorado team that they've struggled all season trying to figure out ways to close out games. I like Arizona State to win this one.
No shortage of storylines, standout teams, and drama in the Big 12 coming up this weekend. Make sure you guys at home try to catch every game, particularly Fox, 8 o'clock, right? It's going to be BYU at Cincinnati. And earlier in the day, Big Noon Kickoff is there to celebrate it all. For Taylor McHargue, I'm Pete Sousa. We'll be back with you next week for a Thanksgiving edition of Inside the 12, where we're going to work on getting Taylor dressed up like a turkey for you, right? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see you guys.